यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दना व्रज जनरञ्जना यशोदानन्दना व्रज जनरञ्जना यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्णा Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Jaya Vrindavan Dham, Vrindavan Dham, Vrindavan Dham, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Jai तस्या ज्ञानञ्जना शलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलान् श्रीगुरोन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपां साग्रजातां सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्ता गौरङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुतदेवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृन्द। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद। जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद। चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद। जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद। जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद। जय चैतन्य जय गौर भक्त वृंद। चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद। जय निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। Hare Krishna everyone, so thank you so much for coming this morning and thank you for the opportunity. Before I begin, I offer my respects to all my seniors, those who are more learned, more experienced, and have made so many more sacrifices. I beg their permission and blessings, and I hope I'll be able to share something with you from Charitamrita. So today we're reading from the Adi Leela of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter number 4. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, when he writes the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he has a very deliberate strategy is a masterpiece. It's explained, Chaitanya Charitamrita Nitya Karapan Jaha Hoite Premananda Bhakti Tattva Gyan. Says, brothers, sisters, you should read daily Chaitanya Charitamrita. Jaha Hoite, by doing so, Premananda, you will experience the happiness of love, and at the same time, Bhakti Tattva Gyan. Every single truth, every single insight, every single lesson one needs to learn about bhakti can be found within the CC. But before Kaviraj Goswami begins to narrate the pastimes of Mahaprabhu, he begins with a Mangalacharan. We also do Mangalacharan before we begin. It goes on for maybe a few minutes. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's Mangalacharan goes on for 12 chapters. We won't do that today, otherwise we won't get into that. And his Mangalacharan basically covers 5 main things. In chapters number 1 and 2, he's describing who is Lord Chaitanya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Swayam Bhagavan Kṛṣṇa. He is the self-same Supreme Person. Then, who is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Why does Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu even come to this world? So chapters number 3 and 4, he deals with that question, explaining the external and the internal reasons. Then, who does Mahaprabhu perform his pastimes with? Who are his closest associates? So then chapters number 5, 6 and 7 deal with the Panchatattva, Mahaprabhu's associates. And then, how was Mahaprabhu's story documented? So then the 8th chapter deals with the story of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami and how he comes to Sri Vrindavan Dham, and on the banks of Radha Kund, Shyama Kund compiles this masterpiece. And then when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left the world, how did the movement go on? That is described in 9, 10, 11 and 12, because there we hear about the Bhakti Kalpataru. So like this, Kaviraj Goswami is very deliberate. Before you can appreciate the pastimes of Mahaprabhu, you need to know who is Mahaprabhu, how did he come, who are his main associates, how was his story documented, and how does his movement continue to proliferate all over the world. And by the way, Srila Prabhupada said, ISKCON is the latest branch in the Bhakti Kalpataru. So that's very nice, because that means we're not just reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we're in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Adyapiha Śrīla Kaha Gauraroy Kona Kona Bhagyavan Dekhi Parapoy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes are going on even today. Kona Kona Bhagyavan, but who is that very fortunate person who has taken the mood and mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and instilled it within their heart? Dekhi Barapoy, they can see all the magic, all the mystical things. It's all going on. So therefore, we have to be a little bit patient. Before we can hear the pastimes, we have to taste some philosophy, isn't it? Like when you have a meal, you have to have some shukta first. A little bitter. But the digestion goes, then the sweet can come. So, Kaviraj Goswami says, Siddhanta boliye chite, na kara alash, iha hoite Krishna lage sudrita manash. When it comes to Siddhanta, understanding philosophy, na kara alash, don't be lazy. Don't skip over. Don't say, oh no, that's for some other scholarly devotee. No. Iha hoite, by doing so, Krishna lage sudrita manash, the mind becomes fixed. So we need a soft heart and a strong mind. Krishna consciousness means you need a soft heart and a strong mind. So today we're reading from Adi Leela, chapter number 4, entitled The Confidential Reasons for the Lord's Appearance. And today we're reading from text number 60. hlādinī karāya kṛṣṇa ānanda-āsvādana. hlādinī karāya kṛṣṇa ānanda-āsvādana. hlādinīra dvārā kare bhaktera poṣaṇa. hlādinīra dvārā kare bhaktera poṣaṇa. hlādinī karāya kṛṣṇa ānanda-āsvādana. hlādinī karāya kṛṣṇa ānanda-āsvādana. hlādinīra dvārā kare bhaktera poṣaṇa. hlādinīra dvārā kare bhaktera poṣaṇa.
hlādinī karāya kṛṣṇe ānandāsvādana.
hlādinī karāya kṛṣṇa ānanda-āsvādana.
hlādinīra dvārā kare bhaktera poṣaṇa. hlādinī karāya kṛṣṇa ānandāsvādana. hlādinīra dvārā kare bhaktera
Mataji's. Hlādinī, the hlādinī energy, karāya, causes to do, kṛṣṇe, in Lord Kṛṣṇa, ānanda-āsvādana, tasting of bliss, hlādinīra dvārā, by the pleasure potency, kare, does, and bhaktera, of the devotee, poṣaṇa, nourishing. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Śrīla Bhakti Vedanta Swami Śrīla Prabhupada ki. Śrīla Jīva Gosvāmī has elaborately discussed the hlādinī potency in his Prīti-sandarbha. He says that the Vedas clearly state only devotional service can lead one to the personality of Godhead. Only devotional service can help a devotee meet the Supreme Lord face to face. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is attracted by devotional service. And as such, the ultimate supremacy of Vedic knowledge rests in knowing the science of devotional service. What is the particular attraction that makes the Supreme Lord enthusiastic to accept devotional service? And what is the nature of such service? The Vedic scriptures inform us that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, is self-sufficient, and that Maya and Nescience can never influence Him at all. Therefore, the potency that overcomes the Supreme must be purely spiritual. Such a potency cannot be anything of the material manifestation. The bliss enjoyed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be of material composition, like the impersonalist conception of the bliss of Brahman. Devotional service is reciprocation between two, and therefore it cannot be located simply within oneself. Therefore, the bliss of self-realization, Brahmananda, cannot be equated with devotional service. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has three kinds of internal potency, namely the hlādinī Shakti or pleasure potency, the Sandhini Shakti or existential potency, and the Samvid Shakti or cognitive potency. In the Vishnu Puran 112:69, the Lord is addressed as follows: O Lord, you are the support of everything. The three attributes, hlādinī, Sandhini, Samvid, exist in you as one spiritual energy. But the material modes which cause happiness, misery, and mixtures of the two do not exist in you, for you have no material qualities. Hlādinī is the personal manifestation of the blissfulness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by which he enjoys pleasure. Because the pleasure potency is perpetually present in the Supreme Lord, the theory of the impersonalist that the Lord appears in the material mode of goodness cannot be accepted. The impersonalist is against the Vedic version that the Lord possesses a transcendental pleasure potency. When that pleasure potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is exhibited by His grace in the person of a devotee, that manifestation is called love of God. Love of God is an epithet for the pleasure potency of the Lord. Therefore, devotional service reciprocated between the Lord and His devotee is an exhibition of the transcendental pleasure potency of the Lord. The potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that always enriches Him with transcendental bliss is not material, but the Shankarites have accepted it as such because they are ignorant of the identity of the Supreme Lord and His pleasure potency. Those ignorant persons cannot understand the distinction between impersonal spiritual bliss and the variegatedness of the spiritual pleasure potency. The hlādinī potency gives the Lord all transcendental pleasure, and the Lord bestows such a potency upon His pure devotee. Śrīla Prabhupada ki. So this morning it's all about pleasure. The pleasure potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the hlādinī Shakti. And what we'll begin to understand as elucidated by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in this chapter is that Srimati Radharani is that hlādinī Shakti. She is the personification of Krishna's pleasure potency. So therefore this whole chapter, and in fact the whole of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, is actually just meant to be a glorification of Srimati Radharani. This is why Mahaprabhu comes to the world. In fact, the Vaishnava poets sing that if Mahaprabhu had not come, then who would have been able to understand the love of Srimati Radharani? So Mahaprabhu comes with these purposes in mind. The Gita has how many verses? 700. Does anyone know what the 350th and 351st verse of the Gita are? No? The verse which is right in the middle, bang in the middle of the Gita, the two verses. If you count the verses of the Gita and you come to the 350th verse, that is 9:13. Mahatmana stumam partha devim prakritim ashrita bhajanti ananya manaso gnatva bhutadim avyayam. The great souls, what do? They take shelter, Devi Prakriti. They take shelter of the internal energy. And in his lectures, whenever Śrīla Prabhupada talks about this verse, he says the Devi Shakti means Srimati Radharani. So what do the great devotees do? 9:13 explains. They take shelter of Srimati Radharani. And what's the next verse of the Bhagavad Gita? 9:14. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridavrita namashantastumam bhaktya nityayukta upashate. The great devotees, number one, take shelter of Srimati Radharani. And what is the second thing they do? Satata kirtan. They're always chanting. That's what the great devotees do. So when Krishna comes, he doesn't come as an average devotee. He doesn't come as a spaced out devotee. He comes as the best devotee. E mata bhakta bhav koriyangikar apaniya chari bhakti korila prachar. I will accept the bhakta bhav and then I will preach. So the two middle verses of the Gita already tell us the two purposes of Mahaprabhu. The external purpose of Mahaprabhu, Satata Kirtan, to spread the chanting of the holy name. And the internal purpose of Mahaprabhu, Devim Prakritim, to take shelter of Srimati Radharani's mood. Radha Bhava Dyuti Suvalitam Krishna Nomi Swarupam. So therefore, it's very secret. All of the literature, Krishna is already giving a hint in the Gita, because the most confidential thing is always in the middle. Krishna is already giving a hint. I will come as a devotee, I will come as a great devotee. And I will glorify the love of Srimati Radharani. So this whole chapter is about the love of Radharani. Who are we? Who am I? How can we even begin to approach the love of Srimati Radharani? It's inconceivable. It's indescribable. It's said that in Braj once Radhastami was coming and there was one speaker. So he was asked to give the sapta before Radhastami. 7 days before Radhastami. So the hall was packed on the first day and he sat down, everyone was eager. Radharani Katha. And then he began the lecture. Janmadhyasya yaton vayad idaratas charteshva bhigyasvarat. Krishna is that person from whom everything comes, all the material, spiritual worlds. And for the rest of the lecture, he glorified Krishna as the source. Because okay, maybe it's a warm-up. Next day, everyone sat down. Radhastami is coming. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachit ānanda-āsvādana. Yo, you talk about Krishna's form? Yes, listen. So everyone was listening. The whole lecture was about Krishna only. Third day, everyone was coming, ready to hear. Ekala Ishvara Krishna Ara Sabha Bhritya. Krishna is the Ekala Ishvara. Everyone else, yes, we know Krishna. We know Radhastami is coming. Like this, 4, 5, 6 days went and he was only glorifying Krishna. Radhastami. 7th day he began his lecture. Everyone thought, okay, at least now. He started glorifying Krishna again. And then it was the final moments of the katha. Everyone was happy about Radharani. And then he said, for the last 7 days I have been telling you about the glories of Krishna. Tomorrow is Radhastami. And what I will now tell you is that this Krishna bows down to the feet of Srimati Radharani. Katha finished. Khatam, ho gaya. That's all you need to know. What more you will understand about Srimati Radharani's love is beyond us. But what we can understand is that Kṛṣṇa is so great. Nothing can be greater than Kṛṣṇa. But Radharani's love contradicts even Krishna's words. Kṛṣṇa says, Mata parataram nanyat. There's nothing higher than me. But Kṛṣṇa bows down to Srimati Radharani. So, her love is inconceivable. Kaviraj Goswami says the love of Srimati Radharani is completely pure, but it's also crooked. The love of Srimati Radharani is all pervasive, and at the same time is always expanding. The love of Srimati Radharani is the greatest, but it has no pride. These are all contradictions. The reason he's telling this is to help us understand we can never understand the love of Srimati Radharani. But what we can understand is that Kṛṣṇa is conquered. In Varshana they have a saying, everything that Radharani does, Kṛṣṇa likes. And everything that Radharani likes, Kṛṣṇa does. She is ruling, Vrindavaneshwari. Therefore, if you look at all of the Vaishnava Acharyas, in their attempts to explain divine love, basically what they're doing is describing Srimati Radharani. That's where it all ultimately culminates. I'll give you some examples. Rupa Goswami begins nectar of instruction, Vacho Vegam, Manasakrodha Vegam. But where does the nectar of instruction end? In Radha Kund. The love of Srimati Radharani and her lake, which is non-different to her being. Rupa Goswami basically ends there. He goes step by step by step, and then he says, Radharani. Sanatan Goswami writes Brihat Bhagavatamrita, and in the first part of the book he is explaining the story of Narad Muni, who wants to know who got the most mercy from Kṛṣṇa. So the journey goes from the Prayag Brahman to the south Brahmana, to the southern king, to Indra, to Brahma, to Shiva, to Hanuman, to Prahlad, to the Pandavas, to the Yadus, to the Gopis, and ultimately to Srimati Radharani. And it stops there. Ramananda Rai, he is questioned by Mahaprabhu. What is life's ultimate goal? So he begins giving so many ideas. Karma Mishra Bhakti. Mahaprabhu says, Eho bhaiya, age kaho aar, say something more. Jnana Mishra Bhakti. Eho bhaiya, age kaho, more. Till finally he comes to Srimati Radharani's love. He says, I've reached the limit of the ocean now, there's nothing more to say. He begins singing a song about Srimati Radharani. Mahaprabhu covers his mouth. He says, don't speak yet. This is too exalted. Shikshashtakam. So many verses. Cheto darpanamarjanam bamaha. Begins with Sankirtan. But where does it end? Ashlishyava padaratam pinashtumam adarshanam. Barmahatam koro divam. Srimati Radharani's mood, what she's saying, what can I do? Mat prana, Kṛṣṇa is my life. And however he deals with me, I can never turn away. Ends at Srimati Radharani. See? The Vaishnava Acharyas are trying to explain love. And ultimately it always culminates at Srimati Radharani. You cannot go beyond that. That is the ultimate limit of love. Because ultimately you can't understand love through philosophy. How much will understand from philosophy about love? Love is an affair of the heart. And therefore it requires one to understand who has given their heart to Kṛṣṇa. That person is the one who can teach us about love. Kṛṣṇa says, Radharani Thakurani, she is my guru. Even she is my guru. So, This whole chapter is glorifying Srimati Radharani, and here we are hearing about the hlādinī Shakti. This is all very technical, to some extent is beyond our comprehension. Somehow we have to try to understand all these matters. Ishvara Parama Kṛṣṇa Sachit Ananda Vigraha. Krishna has a form, a Vigraha. And what is that form? Sat, Chit, Ananda. So it's said that the Sat portion of Krishna's being is encapsulated in the hlādinī Shakti. The Chit portion of Krishna's being is encapsulated within the Samvit Shakti. And the Anand portion of Krishna's being is manifested in the hlādinī Shakti. Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami will begin to unpack all of this tattva of Sri Krishna's energies. So later on he'll describe that the essence of the hlādinī Shakti, the essence of the existential potency is Shuddha Sattva, purified existence. The essence of the existential potency is purified existence. Sattvam Vishuddham Vasudeva Shabditam. He'll explain that the essence of the Samvit Shakti, the knowledge potency of the Lord, is the understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the essence of all knowledge. If you know this, you know everything. Isn't it? What is that? Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti. When one knows that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he knows everything. So therefore, the essence of Samvit Shakti is to know Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then he'll explain that the essence of the hlādinī Shakti is love of God. Because there's no pleasure to be experienced in the world which can even come close, which can even be compared to love of God. Therefore, we're praying for love. Prema dhana vinavyartha daridra jivan dasa kori vetan more deha prema dhan. Prema dhana. If we don't have love in our hearts, daridra jivan, then you must be considered an impoverished soul. Dasa kori, Krishna, make me your servant. Vetan more, and I only want one salary. Deha prema dhan. Please, Krishna, awaken some love in my heart. So the essence of hlādinī Shakti is love of Godhead. And then Kaviraj Goswami will say the essence of love of Godhead is bhav. And then he'll say the highest evolution of bhav is mahabhav. And then he'll say the very personification of mahabhav is Srimati Radharani. In other words, the hlādinī Shakti and Srimati Radharani are non-different. The hlādinī Shakti emanates from Krishna and it manifests as Srimati Radharani so that Krishna can have loving pastimes with Srimati Radharani and experience that bliss. Therefore, Srimati Radharani is always seeking Krishna, and Krishna is always seeking Srimati Radharani. And when they are together, then that is the complete manifestation of the absolute truth. And therefore, we never worship them separately, together. So all these matters are there, described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And here is mentioned that the hlādinī energy gives Krishna pleasure, of course, because it's Srimati Radharani. But it also mentions bhaktera poṣaṇa. The hlādinī Shakti also nourishes the jivas. How is that? Because if a jiva develops love of God, that love of God is the hlādinī Shakti. That bhakti is the hlādinī Shakti. Sometimes, if the Bhagavad Gita is the essence of everything, why isn't Srimati Radharani explained in the Bhagavad Gita? If it's the ultimate end of all knowledge, where is Srimati Radharani in the Bhagavad Gita? Is she there? Is she mentioned? She is mentioned. Because the Bhagavad Gita only exists to glorify what? Bhakti. And therefore, Srimati Radharani is the very shelter of bhakti. Srimati Radharani is not just the exemplar of bhakti. She's not just the one we look to as the ideal example of someone who has bhakti. But Srimati Radharani is the very source of bhakti as the hlādinī Shakti. And therefore, anyone who has bhakti has been blessed with the hlādinī Shakti, and they've been blessed by the grace of Srimati Radharani. And therefore, is Srimati Radharani in the Bhagavad Gita? Yes. Maybe not in person, but in the principle, because bhakti emanates out. She is the shelter of bhakti. So like this, the scriptures will, as I was mentioning, gradually reveal the glory of Srimati Radharani. The Gita reveals it, but in a very concealed way. Then the Srimad Bhagavatam reveals it more, but even there, Sukadeva Goswami doesn't say directly Srimati Radharani's name. Anaya radhito nunam Bhagavan Haririshvara Tanavihaya Govinda Pritodam Jagatanvaya, something I missed it. He mentioned Srimati Radharani, but in an indirect way. Yes, there was one gopi who worshipped Kṛṣṇa in a very special way. So it's there, but also not full. So then Chaitanya Charitamrita fully reveals, no holding back. Now in this 4th chapter of the Adi Leela, so much is explained about Srimati Radharani. Therefore Srila Prabhupada gave everything. But one must be qualified. One must be patient. One must become purified. One must cry. And through that desperation of heart, gradually all these things which are being revealed will move the heart. This is what we're praying for. So here is being mentioned that the pleasure potency gives pleasure to Kṛṣṇa, and it nourishes all the devotees. Life is ultimately about pleasure. One time Srila Prabhupada was in a press conference and a reporter asked him, "What's the goal of life?" Prabhupada looked at the reporter and said, "To enjoy." Enjoy? Prabhupada said, "Yes, to enjoy. But you don't know how. So we've come to teach you." So the goal of life is to enjoy pleasure. Leela. Leela means divine play, nothing to do. Kṛṣṇa has nothing to do. Natasya karyam karanam cha vidyate. Kṛṣṇa has no work to do. Kṛṣṇa is simply interested in Leela, in prema vilas, in exchanging bhakti. And so Vrindavan is that place where all life is play, and all play is life. When life becomes play and play becomes life, then one can understand, yes, now we are living on the spiritual platform. In the material world, no one has a life of only play. In the West, they have a saying, all work and no play. Because people end up working so hard. So hard. One time Prabhupada came with his disciples in a park. It was a beautiful park. And nobody was there. So Prabhupada said, where is everyone? He said, they're at work. Prabhupada said, they go to work, they work hard all week, they pay for all of this, and we come and enjoy it. So people work so hard. It's beautiful when you go around Braj, because you see, like, life is so simple. Then people make life so complicated just to survive. Mortgages, insurance policies, market, stock market crashes, unemployment, inflation, money laundering, Donald Trump. So many things. Then it becomes so complicated, life. And then we forget to be happy. Once I was on Sankirtan and I tried to stop a man. So I said, hey, we're monks. He said, no time. He walked a little further. I said, no, we're giving out books on meditation. He said, no time. We walked a little further. I said, no, it will help you out. He said, no time. As he was walking further, I said, anyway, have a good day. No time. It's funny. He just said it, like, no time. And I thought, this is life. No time to be happy. Working so hard. Nunam pramate kurute vikarma yad indraya pritaya apranoti. Prabhupada always used to quote this verse from Bhagwan. People are mad after sense gratification, but there's no happiness there. So working so hard, forgetting that life is about pleasure. So here Kaviraj Goswami is reminding us that Srimati Radharani is the embodiment of pleasure. And that Srimati Radharani as hlādinī Shakti is giving pleasure to Krishna. But that Srimati Radharani as hlādinī Shakti can also nourish the devotee. And therefore the devotee can be nourished by Srimati Radharani's Shakti if they prepare their heart. Trinadapi sunichena, durodapi sahishana. The heart becomes fertile and one chants with great purity. And then they become nourished by the hlādinī Shakti, and then they experience pleasure. Susukham kartum avyayam. Then life is just pleasure. So these are all very, very high topics. What can we say? But Śrīla Prabhupada has, by his infinite grace, translated these words of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who is inviting all of us to take part in the pleasure pastimes of the Supreme Lord. May we one day arrive in that place where all life is play and all play is life. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Shri Prabhupada. Thank you so much. Yes, I guess we have 10 minutes.
Thank you for the class, Maharaj. We often hear that by studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices and austerities and all the rituals which are required in order to make spiritual advancement doesn't help one unless he receives the mercy of the Kṛṣṇa, or as a revelation. So how we will understand these high topics, but if we don't perform the yagyas and austerities and rituals and all these other things in order to get the blessings, I mean, how do the blessings come? from Krishna and to understand such a high level of love and relationship like that.
Thank you so much. At the end of the 8th chapter of the Gita, Krishna says, Vedeshu yagyeshu tapashu chaiva daneshu yat punya phalam pradistam atyeti tat sarva vidam viditva yogi sthanam apaiti patyam. Krishna says you don't have to do all these things, study the Vedas, perform austerities, do so many sacrifices. Bhakti gets to the root, covers everything. Of course, that's pure bhakti, Shuddha bhakti. Eka Krishna nama kare, sarva papa kshoy. One name of Krishna, finished, job done. One name of Krishna, sarva papa kshoy. Why? Because namno hi yavati shakti. How much shakti the name has. But the question is, how many names will we have to chant to get to that one name? One name will do it, but we may have to chant many, many names to get to that one name. And therefore, although we don't have to do these things, to some measure we do these things. Because Śrīla Prabhupada said, along with the Bhagavad Vidhi, there is the Pancharatriki Vidhi. And many of these activities come under that. Actually, when you look at the Gaudiya Math logo that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur formulated, then it's kind of like in a circle, and half of the circle is Bhagavad Vidhi, and the other half of the circle is Pancharatriki Vidhi. And he's explaining that these two things go side by side. However, we don't get diverted, overly diverted into these things, because we understand Hare Nameva Kevalam. Ultimately, it's the name of Krishna that's going to do it. So how will we get the mercy? There's one piece of amazing news. And that amazing news is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prabodhananda Saraswati says, Kala kalir balina indriya vairi varga Shri Bhakti Marga iha kantaka koti ruddha ha ha kvayami vikalam kimaham karomi Chaitanya Chandra yadi nadya kripam karoshi. He says, Kala, I mean Kali Yuga. That's already red mark. Balina indriya, my senses and my mind are so strong. That's already another red mark. But you're in bhakti. But then what he says, Shri Bhakti Marga iha kantaka koti, and on this path of bhakti there's so many thorns. Another red mark. This, my God, this is looking very red. And then he says, Ha ha kvayami, what will I do? How will I make it? Will I ever get there? And then in the last line he says, Chaitanya Chandra yadi nadya kripam, I'm just praying, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you do it. So Mahaprabhu is our hope. Once devotees were getting into Kali Yuga Katha, isn't it? Sometimes devotees get into Kali Yuga Katha. Oh Prabhu, you wouldn't guess what happened. It's getting really bad out there. And this is happening, and that's happening, and they were all saying, oh, and Kali Yuga, very bad, very bad. Kali Yuga, very bad. And then one devotee said, Kali Yuga? This is not Kali Yuga. This is Chaitanya Yuga. Kali Yuga is small thing. They say, don't tell God how big your problems are. Tell your problems how big God is. So therefore, we don't need to worry about all the problems that are here. We just need to tell our problems, I am with Mahaprabhu. And by Mahaprabhu's grace, possible. Therefore, katanchana shmite yasmin duskaram sukharam bhave. If you have Mahaprabhu's mercy, even difficult things become easy. And if you don't, you can't even lift a pen. Simple things impossible. Therefore, Mahaprabhu first. If you want to get to Vrindavan, Prabodhananda Saraswati says, Yatha yatha Gaura Padāravinde. You want to get to Vrindavan? First, you have to dive into the pastimes of Mahaprabhu. And if you navigate yourselves to the depths of that ocean, then maybe you'll emerge at the banks of Vraj. And there, Srimati Radharani and Krishna will welcome you. So, therefore, we need Mahaprabhu's grace. Otherwise, no chance.
Maharaj, can you explain a little bit more about the process of bhaktera poṣaṇa?
So can we explain more about the process of bhaktera poṣaṇa? We could go into many technicalities, but the essence of it is like this. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives 4 shlokas, which are the Chatushloki. And in one of those shlokas, Krishna says, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam prīti-purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. Krishna says, if you become satata yukta, if you're always engaged, not on and off, not interrupted, not thick and thin, not some days show up, other days call in sick. If you are satata yukta, then Krishna says, Dadami buddhi. I give you all the knowledge, I give you all the strength, I give you all the inspiration by which you can come to me. So what we can understand is that Krishna, through the agency of Srimati Radharani, will nourish the devotee with everything they require to perfect their bhakti. And that is the bhaktera poṣaṇam. This is the real nourishment, this is the real protection. That through this mercy we're able to understand everything we need to do in order to blossom our bhakti. And the bhaktera poṣaṇam also means that when one becomes a pure devotee, then that feeling of bliss, that is all ultimately emanating from the pleasure potency, Srimati Radharani. And therefore, Prabhupada says, love of God as the epithet. He explains it. Let me just read it. Prabhupada explains that love of God is an epithet for the pleasure potency of the Lord. We could discuss this another time, but it's even the word love of God. In English, someone may say, isn't it more grammatically correct to say love for God than love of God? But it's very specific terminology, because the love is of God. Because the love is the hlādinī Shakti that the devotee is invested with, which they offer back to Krishna. That hlādinī Shakti very emanates from Krishna in the first place. Therefore, when Prabhupada says love of God, is perfect. Is an epithet for the pleasure of the potency of the Lord. Therefore, devotional service reciprocated between the Lord and His devotee is an exhibition of the transcendental pleasure potency of the Lord. Alright, I mean, say something more. I don't. It's 9 o'clock. Do we have to finish, or should I take this?
Take
One
one.
more.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. So Maharaj, so many red lights in our devotional path.
So many.
Red light.
Red lights, red crosses,
So-
red marks.
Today morning, I read Bhagavatam. Purport says in his purport that one can become spiritually very strong by the mercy of devotees, or one can spiritually fall down by being disrespected to devotees. So in our devotion path, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, so many difficulty comes. We are not respecting to devotees due to our ego. We are disrespecting due to our power, position. So how we can overcome this? How we can respect to all devotees in Śrīla Prabhupada mission? This is my question. Kindly please enlighten.
The Vaishnavas are very, very special. Krishna Bhakti Janma Mula Hoya Sadhu Sangha. Unless Vaishnavas are present in the world, no one can begin their bhakti. Because they're the Janma Mula. Their association with them is the root cause of the awakening of devotion. So, whatever stage of development, evolution a Vaishnav may be at, every Vaishnav must be honored, must be valued, must be encouraged. Vaishnavas are the hope for the world, and Vaishnavas are our hope. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Eka ki amar, nahi paya var. Alone, nostra. You can do it for one day, 1 week, 1 month, but if you don't have loving relationships with the Vaishnavas, no chance. Therefore he says, Krishna say tomar, Krishna is yours. Krishna dhite paro, tomara shakti aches. You can give Krishna to me. So every great Vaishnav became a great Vaishnav because they served another great Vaishnav. And when we look around, we should not just look for the great Vaishnavas, because every Vaishnav is carrying some mercy. Every Vaishnav is carrying the Shakti in some way, shape or form. So life is too short. We don't have time for criticism. We don't have time for comparing with others. We don't have time to do all these things. Gramya katha na shunibe, gramya varta na kahibe. Don't get into it. It's just a waste of time. Because jadi Vaishnava parad, ute hati mata. If you misjudge a devotee, everything is lost. Why would we take a risk? So, once there was a guru, and the disciple came to him and he said, this person is criticizing you in the town. He's shouting, he's criticizing. The guru heard. And the disciple was so disturbed. And the guru said, why don't you learn from him? He's so enthusiastic to go out. We should be enthusiastic to go out and say good things about others. It was very interesting because he just took that as a lesson. That let me take something good. He's criticizing me, but the good thing is he actually has to get up in the morning and do something. He may be doing something terrible, but maybe we can learn and turn it around and say, why don't you learn from him? So like this, we have to become unoffendable. We have to come to the point where we don't take offense, where we try to see the good. And as Prabhupada said, when one devotee said, I just can't tolerate this devotee anymore, Prabhupada said, you have to tolerate him just as I am tolerating you. So life is too short. Rather than filling our mouth with criticism which we don't know, may be true, maybe not, why take a risk? Instead, fill your mouth with the glories. Bhaktera mahima hoya panchamukh. Mahaprabhu, when he would speak about the glories of the devotees, panchamukh, he says, though he had 5 mouths, he had so much to say about the devotees and their glories. So they say, your head should be like an ice factory, and your mouth should be like a sweet factory. Keep a cool head and sweet words. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai.